Welcome back to Beyond Small Talk, where real conversations lead to new perspectives and insights. Today, I have the pleasure of sitting down with someone who has spent 24 years in law enforcement and is now running for sheriff, Mr. Shane Vance.
Hey, nice to meet you.
I wanted to start from the beginning. What originally sparked your interest in becoming a deputy?
My interest in becoming a deputy, honestly, kids have like dreams of what they want to be when they grow up. I honestly never thought I'd be a law enforcement officer. Never thought I'd be a law enforcement officer. When I graduated from Mitchell High School, I went straight to work at Baxter's. And I was working down there, and I worked there for about 3 years, and I was thinking, man, I can't imagine having to be here for 30 years before I can retire. And I worked back in packing with some of the older people that worked there, and I could see, their hands hurting. They all had braces on and stuff. I'm like, and I enjoyed the people down there, but it's funny. I went to barber school at Mayland Community College, and they didn't offer just barber school. You had to go through the cosmetology part of it too. Well, I wasn't interested in women's hair, you know what I mean? But I had to go through that to be able to get my barber's license. And while I was going through Mayland Community College, I worked at Grassy Creek Hardware, and I did security down at Baxter's at the gatehouse. And I sold Rainbow vacuum cleaners on the side.
And old.
Yeah. So I was working 3 jobs and going up here to cosmetology school and to become a barber. So I thought, I want to open up a barber shop and do all that. And you can see, like, it's funny, my hair fell out because that's what I wanted to be. But I don't need the barber. But anyway, long story short, when I was selling Rainbow vacuum cleaners, I went to a deputy at the time. His name was Tony Lomanak. He actually lived on Davenport Road here. And while I was selling vacuum cleaners, him and his wife was talking to me, and I got interested in Tony because he's a real nice guy. And I thought, he had his uniform on. He'd just got off work, and I'm doing this Rainbow presentation. And he's like, "Why don't you be a deputy?" And I was thinking, back then, I was like, well, that's probably takes a long time to be a deputy.
Right.
And I was like, well, how long does it take? And he's like, well, if you go to the evening class, it's about 9 months. And he said, if you go to the day class, you can be done in about 4 months. I was like, wow, it's interesting. And so I went and unenrolled from cosmetology school and went to the basic law enforcement training up at Mayland.
The BLET.
BLET program. And it was Tim Duncan's first year in 2001. And it's kind of funny how that worked out because we'll get into a little more of my background of what sparked my interest of becoming a deputy. Is my mother and father, they had some issues with substance abuse. And so I was raised by my grandparents, and it kind of hit home when I was talking to Tony about becoming a law enforcement officer, because I don't know if you're into religion or anything like that, but I am.
Right. And
I thought, Lord put me in their house to show that vacuum cleaner for some reason. And then that planted a seed in my mind with my childhood, what I went through with substance abuse with my parents and being raised by my grandparents. I thought maybe this is really what God wants me to do, because him bringing that up and speaking to me while I'm showing a Rainbow vacuum cleaner. I don't believe in coincidence.
Right. It happened for a reason.
It happened for a reason. And I'm like, I need to go through this door. It feels like God's opened this door. I need to go through it. And that's how I got started into law enforcement. And the whole reason behind that was maybe I can help people get off drugs. Maybe I can help kids that's been through what I've been through. And maybe I can get drug dealers off the street. And that was my passion going into law enforcement.
That was your driving force.
That was my driving force. And so that's how I got started in law enforcement in 2001.
I remember you mentioned there's a difference between the day and the night classes.
There is. Yep. During the day classes, you go 8 hours a day. The night classes were from 6 to 10, so it doubled it. It doubled the time, and that was the first year. I believe it was. I may be wrong, but it was 620 hours that you had to complete. Now I think it's went up close to 700 hours.
Right.
Just adding in different things with the times,
But you got to think there's a lot of they pack into that.
There's a lot they pack into. And, I'm an instructor as well. I went to instructor school, so I got to teach some of the basic law enforcement classes. And, I went to Salemburg to the Justice Academy to get my certificate to be able to teach. And I always told the cadets, I was like, this is book work. What you really learn is out in the field.
Right.
And that's what the instructors always told us in my class was like, this is just scraping the surface of what you're going to see. There's no scenario that we can set up in this classroom
that will
prepare you for what you're going to see and what you're going to deal with. And that was the truth. That was the truth.
Because there's nothing like real life experience to humble you or to serenade you there.
Right. And, the civil process part of it was probably the most that you could learn in a classroom setting. Just the paperwork, the amount of days that it takes that you have to serve a certain paper and how to fill it out and things like that was probably the most primary thing that I took away from the classroom work. But as far as the scenarios of being shot at, you can't,
you script that.
You can't script that. They did their best to try to make you under pressure, and things like that, like by loud noises going off by your head while you're shooting at a target and things like that. But there's no perfect scenario. I mean, you can prepare, but there's always going to be something that you didn't prepare for.
Right. Take me back to the day 24 years ago when you took the oath and officially became an officer of the law.
I was proud to take that oath. It meant so much, and putting your hand on that Bible, taking that oath to uphold the Constitution is, you can't think of another profession that you have the power to take somebody's freedom.
Right.
So you have to take that seriously. But what struck me the most when I put my hand on the Bible and swore the oath was to serve the people. Like, I can be a role model.
Right.
To the kids that went through what I went through. I can be an example of, you don't have to go down this road that your parents went down. You can take a different road. And for me to accomplish that, I know it made my grandma proud. My grandpa had passed away and didn't get to see all that. But I know it made her really proud. And I was proud to take that oath. And I still remember it like it was yesterday. Like it's something that if you don't feel that in your heart when you take that oath of, I've got the weight of the county on my shoulders right now.
Right.
Then I don't think that you'd be in it for the right reason. But I really, when I took that oath, that it was not just for me, but it was for the people too.
What is that oath and what purpose does it serve?
It's an oath to uphold the Constitution of North Carolina and the United States, and to protect people. That oath is to protect people. The Constitution is in place to protect people.
Ordinary citizens.
Ordinary citizens from a tyrannical government, things of that nature. Your Second Amendment rights, your Third, your Fourth Amendment rights of respecting your house and your belongings here. That oath is something that a lot of, I'm not saying all officers, but I've seen some in 24 years that think the badge means I can do whatever I
Kind of
want
like
to do.
the misuse of power.
Misuse of power. But to me, that oath meant, okay, I'm going to be held to the higher standard, and I'm going to uphold this oath no matter what. When it, like, for instance, COVID and things like that, when it hit, and all these mandates were coming down, and totally unconstitutional.
Right.
I would not have enforced any of that stuff. And if it ever happened again, I wouldn't enforce it, because to me, it was unconstitutional. And when I put my hand on that Bible, that means
I took it
very personal. And when you swear to the Lord above, you take it, that means a lot. You're only as good as your word. And that's the reason that every government agency puts their hand on that Bible. And I know they talk about separation of church and state, but even the president puts his hand on the Bible of some sort, whatever religion he is.
Right.
So, your constitutional rights is what we've got to stand on in the United States. And I take that very, very seriously. And I'll always protect people's Second Amendment, Third Amendment, Fourth Amendment, Fifth Amendment, First Amendment, what we're doing right now.
Freedom of speech.
Freedom of speech. And, even if we don't agree with it, people have the right to get out and express their First Amendment right. And I'll never, as a sheriff, stand in the way of that, or in any capacity in law enforcement.
Before we move on to the next question, you talk about the power.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think at some points during a deputy's, career, that the lines almost kind of get blurred for the misuse or like
Absolutely
their level of power?
I can tell you this, though, in 24 years working with different agencies.
Does it go to somebody's head? I guess is what I was trying to
I have seen the ones that I have seen in the past where it goes to their head, they don't last long.
They're in for the wrong reasons.
Because there's enough good ones. There's enough good officers that will call them out on it.
Right.
And, I think, I won't throw out a wrong statistic, but I've looked this up in the past. It's like 0.0004% of law enforcement officers misuse that badge. And like I said, they don't make it very long because we'll call them out on it.
Right.
And I've seen it happen. I've seen it happen numerous times.
Right.
Where they get badge heavy, and it'll eventually catch up with them. It always does, and always has. In my 24-year experience, I've seen it. I mean, karma comes back.
Don't end well.
No, it doesn't end well.
There's a quote by Octavia Spencer that says, "You have to get out of your own comfort zone in order to grow." In 2006, you left the Mitchell County Sheriff's Office and gathered experience in different counties over the next 11 years until returning in 2017. What did those 11 years teach you, both personally and professionally?
Personally, it taught me I wanted to stay here in Mitchell County in 2006. That's when I call it the epidemic of opioids was at the peak.
Right.
And I had lost so many friends that I went to school with, and even family during that period of time, that I felt like I had people coming to me that trusted me, that was in that circle, that say, hey, I know who's selling this, who's selling that, who's selling. And they trusted me with that because the way that I spoke to them, the way that I treated them, and getting out of my comfort zone was leaving here because I didn't want to in my heart. But I knew, going back to your first question of why I got in law enforcement, I wasn't able to work narcotics here in Mitchell County. I would take the information people were giving me and give it to the narcotics officer at the time, and I would see no results.
Right.
And I was a detective at the time. And my plate was full because we only had 2 detectives at that time. And at that point in time, I was making $28,000 a year.
Not a lot of money, though.
Not a lot of money. We could have got food stamps. And I would go and even try to help this guy at some point to get some of these people. We did get a few of them, but not like I would like. And people were just dying left and right. And I wanted to work drugs here in Mitchell County. And I didn't see any time in the near future of me being able to do that. So at that time, Sheriff Kevin Fry in Avery County had just taken over. He'd just taken office. And one of his deputies said, I know a guy that hates drugs. And he wants to light the world on fire.
Right.
So Kevin Fry calls me. And he says, how would you like to be the drug task force agent in Avery County? And I'm thinking, man, I don't want to leave home, but this is what I got into law enforcement to do. And I knew at the time that some of the drugs that was coming into Mitchell County was coming through Avery County from Tennessee. And I'm thinking, well, I can kind of be in the middle and stop them from getting into Mitchell County.
Right.
And so I said, absolutely. Didn't ask what the pay was because I mentioned $28,000. You can tell nobody gets into law enforcement to get rich. It's right here in your heart. So I took that job, and it was hard for me to leave because this is my home. But I wasn't given the opportunity to do what I wanted to do, and I was seeing people die left and right that I had grown up with, and that was getting out of my comfort zone, was going to a place where I absolutely knew nobody. I knew the guy that he had rode with me some in Mitchell and worked in Mitchell, and his name is Frank Calano. I'll just go ahead and throw it out there. But he's the one that mentioned me to the sheriff up there.
Right. And
when I got up there, how that worked was I was the drug officer for all the 5 municipalities, which was Sugar, Beach, Newland, the sheriff's office, and Banner Hill.
It's quite a large area.
And my badge I still have today has all those agencies on it. So that's a lot. And my friend that just passed away, Eddie Hughes, his funeral's Wednesday. He was my partner. And we worked together for 9 years. And I worked undercover because nobody in Avery County knew who I was.
So it kind of worked in your advantage.
It worked in my advantage. And the first place I went was a McDonald's because the manager was selling drugs out of the drive-through window, was selling pills out of the drive-through window. And it took me 3 days to bust him. So we got him busted. But I pulled my statistics from up there, and I'd arrested over 748 people in Avery County for narcotics. I lost 1 case. And I got to see with Bill Burleson, my office was in Banner Hill. Bill Burleson was my boss. I got to see how a different type of structure and even with the sheriff's office, like a lot of officers here has never worked where there's a jail.
Right.
And in 2001, we had a jail. And I was here when the jail caught on fire.
It was over in Bakersfield.
It was in Bakersfield. And it was a small jail. And a lot of officers that are working now wasn't around a jail. So they didn't realize, it's kind of a commodity to be able to arrest somebody, take them to jail, drop them off in booking, go out and get another one.
Right.
You know what I mean? You don't have to spend 3 hours to, transportation and all that stuff. So I got to see that side of things. And one of Bill Burleson's that I took away from that man, and I've had a lot of bosses, but that I got a lot of respect for that man, and Kevin Fry. Was Bill's motto was, I had better never hear you talk bad about another officer. Let me repeat. I better never get wind that you're talking bad about another officer. He said, unless they're doing something criminal or something immoral, he said it better come to me first. He told all his officers that.
Right.
And
what do you mean by that?
Officers and any other law enforcement officer will tell you this. It's a backbiting profession. I don't know if it stems from jealousy that this guy's getting to work drugs and this guy's a detective, but a lot of them, when they're parked side by side, they're probably talking about another officer. And I don't know why that is, because it's a brotherhood, and all we have is each other in the long run, because, most common citizens don't want to hang out with a police officer. They think that we're all
out to get them, or
out to get them, or even family. Family turn their backs on you, but it's really not like that. We're just people that's got a job to do, and that kills morale, toxicity. One toxic person inside a department can kill that whole department, and it spreads like wildfire. And Bill knew that. He'd been around long enough to know that. So if he could stop that before it got started, you could keep morale in the department
under check.
Yes, and it worked. It had a great department up there, great department, and with the computer systems and sheriff's packs and other things that we used up there, and just the structure of things. I took a lot away from that, and more so in McDowell County. But I don't know if you mentioned McDowell County on there, but what happened was up in Avery County, I was a grant position.
Okay.
And how that worked was I would have to write my own grant every year to keep my job. And
basically on borrowed time every year.
On borrowed time, yes, every year. And it got to the point to where they said, no, we're not going to give you this grant anymore. And that it's not that they wasn't going to give it to us, it wasn't available to even put in for. So what Bill did, trying to fight to keep my job before he retired, was he got with ALE and made me an ALE agent. And that they gave me $20,000 a year to go around to the bars, and that way it went into the money pot that the municipalities was putting into. And so that's how I was scraping by every year. I didn't know if I was going to have a job or not every year, because we was having to scrape money from here. And then they got a county commissioner in there that wiped out the sheriff's office $20,000 portion of it.
So there went,
and I was like, how are we going to get this 20? I didn't want to have to worry about a job every year.
Right.
So, and, we had the production. It was all on paper. We were making arrests. And I mean, it was in the news that we do roundups. It'd be 60 people we'd round up at one time. And, it wasn't like a production. It was just, it was a grant, and it ended. So, I had purchased a lot of drugs undercover for McDowell County while working in Avery County. So they knew me in McDowell County, and they had a narcotics officer's position come open, and I went down there and did some narcotics work down there. It's a different world down there. You talk about out of your comfort zone.
Right.
You got a lot more diversity down there. So when I would roll up into some neighborhoods that I wasn't familiar with and get blocked in by a bunch of people while I was buying crack cocaine, that is out of my comfort zone. Because you got this guy with this hillbilly accent in a neighborhood he shouldn't be in. And luckily, drug dealers only see green.
Right.
So I would make sure I had that money out in my hands so they could see that, and they didn't pay attention to my accent and things like that. But I put my life on the line a lot of times, and I never told my wife some situations that I got into. But being an undercover officer is very dangerous, very dangerous. So you talk about being out of your comfort zone, and it was like that in Avery County as well. I mean, you roll up in some of them hollers, man, you might not come out.
Right.
And I rolled up in several haulers and bought a lot of drugs. Got a lot of drugs off the street. And I always wore a hoodie with my pistol right here in the front of my hoodie. And there was a guy one time tried to get me to hit a crack pipe. And I was like, no, man, I don't do it. I just sell it.
Right.
And he's like, no, you're going to hit this.
I guess that's a good follow-up question. Did they ever, like, as a detective or undercover, did anybody try to, like, test you?
Oh, all the time.
Just to see if you were who you say you were?
All the time, yes. There was a bar up there, and I had to work in that bar because the manager at that time was selling lots of cocaine. And I had a guy come up to me just out of the blue, and he said, so when did you graduate the academy? I was like, what are you talking about? I was like, he's like, I know you're a cop.
In that moment, do you think, like, the jig's up? Like, somebody knows?
No, I just play it off. Because is it a test or does he really know?
Right.
You know, so I just play it off like, dude, I don't know what you're talking about. You got me confused with somebody else. It's kind of like what you see on the movies, you know. I was in some bad situations, but yeah, I got tested a whole lot. It's dangerous. It's dangerous working undercover because, you know, if somebody does make you, because it's a small world.
Yeah.
I mean, you can run into somebody you know. I'll tell you a funny story about working undercover. We had an individual, I won't name names when it comes to people that I arrested, but he sold me a pound of marijuana. Okay. I had arrested this guy twice when I worked in Mitchell County, but I had let my hair grow out and had a ball cap on. And when it come time to arrest him, he said, I cannot believe I sold a pound of marijuana to Shane Vance. I've known him my whole life, and he's took me to jail twice.
So he didn't put it together.
He didn't put it together until then. But, you know, that's, like I said, that all they see is green. And these drug dealers, they don't go to funerals. They don't see the suffering that the kids go through. So I was willing to do whatever it took to get them within the law.
Right.
I never did anything shady. I had an informant call me one time. He said, I know you've been after this guy for a while. He's like, I can get him for you. I said, okay. I said, what's he got? And he said an 8-ball of meth, which is about 3.4 grams of meth. And, you know, that's a pretty good amount for Avery County. And I said, all right. And he's like, I'm going to go in and put it in his couch cushion. He said, y'all can do a search warrant on it and hit it. And I was like, do what? What did you just say?
You have to, like, double take it.
I said, are you saying you're going to plant drugs on somebody and us go in and get it? I said, best thing you can do, bud, is lose my phone number. I said, do not ever call me back. And he called the sheriff complaining that I wasn't going to do a drug deal. And the sheriff called me and he's like, what's going on? I said, this is what he said. And I said, ain't no way I'm doing that. He said, oh, okay. He's like, no, we're done with him.
Right.
Because they have to, you know, on your search warrants and stuff and your warrants, when you're working with confidential informants, they have to be reliable. And at that point, he's not reliable anymore. So I'm done with him. I mean, that's crooked.
Right.
And because
that goes back to your oath you spoke on.
That goes back to your oath, and that goes back to just downright being a decent human being. You know, if I can catch somebody red-handed, then
shame on them.
Shame on them. But if I do something like that, I'm worse than they are because I took that oath.
Right.
Never in my career have I done anything like, and I've handled a lot of money. I mean, I'm talking hundreds of thousands of dollars. Nothing ever got missing. There was no question about my evidence. Nothing. So, I mean, and that goes back to my mission of what I wanted to do and doing it the right way. And everybody that you know would, or I know, would tell you that I did it the right way. And even the people that I busted that were small time people, I would try to get them help. You know, that was my goal to begin with, to get the little people help. Now the dealers, they can go to prison. I had no use for them. No use for them. But yeah, a lot of times out of my comfort zone, and it was very hard leaving my hometown. But I gained a lot of experience because Bill was big on sending people to training,
Right.
and you know, I got to go to DEA school. I got to go to all these methamphetamine schools. I got to become a methamphetamine laboratory certified, so I can go in. You know, that was during the peak of we were actually 5th in the state in Avery County when I worked up there for meth lab seizures. 5th in the state. And it was almost daily that I was having to put a hazmat suit on. And so I don't miss that part of it at all. But nowadays, meth just, you can get it anywhere. It's the borders have been open, the cartels has, you know, brought it across the border. So, and in McDowell, like an ounce of meth was nothing.
Right.
Yeah, but up here you get an ounce of meth, that's big. But down there, an ounce of meth was nothing. I seen a lot of weight down there. And I mean, and there was times I was like, oh my gosh, you know, like I never seen that much drugs in my life. But got a lot of experience that way. And I worked a lot of diversion cases. Back then we had a lot of doctors that were writing scripts and just hand them out to people, you know, and shut a bunch of those doctors down. Actually worked with the DEA shutting down. Florida had these pain clinics. People would drive all the way to Florida. As long as you had money, you come back with 130 Roxyset. And we worked with the OSDEF and DEA to get that whole strip shut down. So we shut down multiple. We actually got a lot of forfeiture money from that too.
It's a pretty big accomplishment.
It is. It is. I was proud of that. Yeah, because you know, dirty doctors at that time were getting people hooked, and they were making a killing off of it.
So a lot of big stuff there. And condolences to your friend that
I appreciate that.
Passed on.
Yeah, he was a good man. He been battling cancer, and but he and I were like brothers, and we went through the trenches together, and he also put himself in some scary situations. So, but yeah, we were really close. It's but he's in no more pain. So
That's the best part.
yeah.
Do you think you would have learned those lessons and skills if you hadn't left?
No, I would have never. They've gotten a little better on training here in Mitchell County, but back when I worked there in 2006, we didn't have the staff to be able to send people to training because we didn't. Who was going to fill in for a detective? You know, who was going to work these child sex cases? Who was going to do all of these things while I was going to training? So I don't blame it as much on the sheriff or the department as that's just what we had to work with.
Right.
You know? So when I went to Avery County, I got that chance because, you know, drugs today is going to be there tomorrow. So I could go to these trainings and get this experience and bring it back to Mitchell County. So no, I wouldn't have gotten near the experience.
Well, you talked about the like who was going to fill your shoes. Does that come down to like budget? Because I mean, every place you're at,
it is. It's budgets, and it's also, you know, being a sheriff is political, and you don't want to put a burden on the taxpayers, and you don't want to go to the county commissioners and ask for too much, because you want to be reelected.
right?
And I'm just being real. That's the way it is. So, you know, that puts the sheriff in a hard spot. But the way I see it, if we're saving all this money by not having a jail, why can we not have more officers? Why can we not get better officer pay to keep good officers? Because we keep getting officers and they leave.
Right.
Good officers, you know. And that's my stance is we need better pay, more officers. Going back to the animal control thing, a civil process officer. We should be fully staffed if we don't have a jail, because the jail is, I would say a sheriff would tell you it's 60 or 70% of the budget.
And if we're not having that,
then why can we not get enough officers to where we can send them to the training that would benefit the people in the office?
right?
That's my vision. You know, I want to get to that point to where we can send officers to the trainings they want to go to. The officers that are assigned to work narcotics can just work narcotics, and detectives can focus on cases. And you know, you had to, when I was detective, you had to answer calls because we only had 2 officers at the time on the road, and now we've got 3, sometimes 4.
I mean, it's an increase, but
It's increased, but it's nowhere near what it should be.
right.
And that, I think that boils down to the budget. You know, Mitchell County's struggling, especially after the hurricane. The county is struggling, waiting on FEMA to pay them their money. And, you know, now is not a good time as a sheriff to bring up building a jail or anything like that. But maybe 4 years from now, we can look into, you know, we've got a Senator, Ralph Heiss, that's a big proponent of Mitchell County. You can see what he's done for the school system.
Built that new school here recently.
Yeah, we got the new school. I mean, stuff that, you know, a lot of schools don't have. And we've got it because of him and the superintendent and Kim Hodgson that wrote some grants. And I don't know, I can't tell you who writes the grants for the sheriff's office. I don't know that. I don't know how many grants are applied for. But that's something I'd like to find out, because there's money available. You just have to want to do it.
Do a little digging.
Do a little digging. And, you know, you got to be kind of headstrong and say, you know, we need this. Citizens need this. We need to be, in my opinion, we're about 20 years behind. And that's my opinion.
Which sounds kind of alarming.
Well, we've got good officers.
When you say behind,
When I say behind, I mean like we don't have the staff we should have. We're doing pretty good on equipment and things like that. SRT's doing pretty good on equipment, and I'd like to see them, you know, keep advancing as far as that goes. But behind the times in training and being able to keep officers, and the pay, we're behind in pay big time. You know, we're losing officers because Avery County's paying $10,000 more a year. You know, and McDowell pays more, Yancey pays more. I mean, so we need to be caught up so we can, the turnover's not
as heavy,
and we can get caught up to the times. And you can't get caught up to the times if you can't keep officers to train them.
Right.
You know, that's what I mean by that. We got to be able to keep officers and boost morale within the department, and just, you know, lay the foundation to be what we should be.
I think the foundation's key to just about anything.
It is, and you know, with a new sheriff coming in, whether it be Cecil or myself, it's going to be an uphill battle. But I see, with my experience in other places, that's one thing they're using against me is I've not been in Mitchell County the whole time.
To be honest, that could work in your benefit.
I think it's an asset, because I've seen what works and what doesn't work, and I've taken away a lot of those things, you know, and I can bring that here and probably get things done quicker,
more efficiently,
because I would like to have a professional grant person write our grants, and you know, and I've tried to pull up numbers on the SBI website that agency's supposed to report to, and I can't find any numbers for Mitchell County, and I don't know who keeps the numbers, but how do you write grants if you can't show any numbers behind it? So, I mean, that's a question that I would need to ask somebody within the department.
Right.
But it's confusing to me because you can see Yancey County stats on the SPI website, and you can see Avery County's, but ours is 0. I'm thinking,
Was that from a lack of attempts, or just?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I don't know if the hurricane had something to do with it, but it affected Avery and Yancey too.
Right, you would think.
So I don't know. I don't know if they're not reporting, or that you definitely need to report. I mean, that's how you get your grant monies, by showing numbers.
You've worked under several different leaders and across different environments. In your opinion, what's the single most important quality a leader needs today, and how have you demonstrated that throughout your career?
By being me, by always being, I'm always approachable. I can talk to people. I can relate to people. And as far as being a leader, I've never been a follower.
Right.
And this goes to show you I've never been a follower, because a lot of times in law enforcement, they say you've been in law enforcement 24 years, you've never had any rank whatsoever. Well, I've never had any rank because I was not a butt kisser. I was me, and I didn't care about rank. I wanted to lead by being me. And I feel like if the deputies came to me and, wanted to talk to me, that they would see that, I would do what was always the right thing, not what was popular.
Right.
And I think that's what makes a good leader is doing the right thing over what's popular, and being fair and consistent. If you can be consistent, nobody can ever complain about it. You got to be consistent
Across the board.
Consistency. And I've always been that way in my career. I mean, anybody that knows me that has worked with me, I am consistent and I'm fair. And a lot of people's like, well, why are these drug dealers or drug addicts, these former drug addicts, why do they have your sign in their yard? Because I was fair and consistent.
Right.
And they've changed their lives around. And they respect me because I helped them change their life around.
Well, it goes back to earlier, you didn't abuse the power you had.
I didn't abuse the power.
Treated them like a human being.
In my opinion, God's greatest gift to people was their mouth. You can talk your way into a bad situation, and you can talk your way nicely, and the end result is the same. Why make your job harder by being an arrogant individual looking down on somebody that's made a mistake?
Right.
Why make it harder? Why? Because at the end of the day, the result's going to be the same. So why make it harder?
There's no need to puff your chest out.
There's no need to puff your chest out. They're going to jail either way. And like it or not, as a law enforcement officer, you're going to need these people sometime down the road, because they're in that loop and they're connected to certain people that you're not connected with. And suppose somebody in that circle's got a warrant out for them, and this has happened numerous times in my career. And these people that's in that loop have called me and said, Shane, I know where such and such is at. It's got a warrant on them.
That transparency.
Yeah, that transparency. And I've even had them turn themselves in. I've called them and say, hey, man, I've always been straight with you. Just turn yourself in. Don't make this. I said, it's going to look better on you in court. It's going to look good on you. It's going to look good on you in the magistrate's office. Just turn yourself. And they have. And I think anybody would say that about me. Even the people that I've arrested in the past, is I've always been fair and consistent. And you've got to be that way as a leader too. You got to be fair and consistent. And the way that promotions have been in the past with other agencies, going back to that question, what I can bring here is I don't like the fact that just because an individual's been here longer than this person doesn't make them more qualified.
Right.
You know, just because they've been there with that agency longer than this guy doesn't make them more qualified. And there's never been any type of hiring board, which blows my mind. It's like, you know, they'll hire somebody and there's no hiring board, no interview process. Just, I mean, it's very generic interview situation. You know, come in, talk to the chief deputy and the sheriff, and okay, you're hired. Here's your gun. Here's your badge. Yeah. And so, even when I went to Avery County, with the drug task force, I had to sit down in front of 5 people and be interviewed, and other people had applied for that position as well. And the person that did the best got the job.
You're right.
And I think that's the way it should be. And
Based upon the interview and
yes,
the experience.
Interview and experience. And because, you know, in law enforcement, sometimes you become complacent. I've been there myself, about the 10-year mark, 15-year mark. You know, you're like, oh, what's the point, man? The court just lets them right back out, and we have to deal with them over and over and over. So you become kind of hard-hearted and complacent. And, you know, it's not a good place to be in when you're looking at a promotion standpoint.
Right.
Know? So that goes back to, you know, I can be a leader in that aspect of doing things the right way as far as promotions and being fair and consistent. And that's what I'll stand on, is being fair and consistent with the people and with the employees, and listening to my employees.
Feedback.
Yes. And getting feedback from them, not being so headstrong that I just dismiss what they say. Actually take it to heart and look at it from their perspective. And if changes need to be made from their perspective and it makes sense, then that's what we'll do. And another thing I'd like to see is department meetings. We don't have department meetings.
Why?
I don't know. Every other department that I worked at, we've had department meetings, and, you know, we've sat down and talked about what we're doing good, what we're doing bad, what we need to work on, ideas from people, ideas from the leadership standpoint. And then, you know, you got to be firm as a leader. You got to have backbone. If you got officers out here doing the wrong thing, you need to have backbone.
Kind of their own agenda person.
Yeah. You got to have backbone as a leader, and, you know, and you do become friends with the people that you work with. And a lot of the people over at the sheriff's office right now that has never worked with me. Some of them goes back several years, but they never worked with me for a long period of time. So, you know, they're partial to Cecil, and that's fine. I understand that they're friends and their friendship. I get that.
Right.
I do. And you know, the big rumor going around is I'm going to fire everybody. How can I fire everybody? I mean, we've not got people knocking down the door to come and work. It's everything we can do to get people to stay. How am I going to fire everybody? That's total false. Now, what I do plan on doing is sitting down with each one of them and say, hey, where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Right. What's
your goals here? You know, where's your heart at? What drove you, kind of like what you asked me, what drove you to be a law enforcement officer? What's your niche? You know,
what's your calling?
What's your calling? Right. and get on the same page with them. And say, oh, I'd really like to be an investigator one day. Well, what do you think about going to a interview interrogation class? What do you think? You know, gain morale.
Yeah.
And if SRT's their thing, okay, what can I do to boost that? What can I do to help this move forward? You know, just being approachable and getting on the same page with department meetings, and having command meetings. And that goes back to getting caught up with the times.
Right.
Because every other place I've seen those meetings take place.
That structure
That
is in.
structure. And you got to keep that structure because it's kind of like Jenga. You keep pulling a little bit at a time, and it's going to eventually fall over. So you got to keep that structure going by having department meetings and being on the same page. And that's, hopefully that answered your question.
Oh yeah, it did.
Okay.
You talked about rank. When you think about, I guess, where each person falls in the dominoes,
Mhm.
elaborate more on the rank of like a sheriff's department or.
Well, what we have now at the sheriff's department is,
I don't really know what each role may or may not be.
what we have now, of course, is the sheriff. All right. Then we have the chief deputy. Then you have the captain. And then you have the lieutenants. And then you got the lieutenant detective. And that's about all the rank that there is in a small department like Mitchell. What I've seen with rank in a small department is it doesn't mean much more than a pay raise.
Right.
Because in the end, the way things are now, the sheriff has the ultimate say. And my thought process is, with what I've seen in other places, is the chief deputy should run the department. And the sheriff, of course, be approachable. But you should first follow that chain of command. And, I don't see that here. And the sheriff here works more than any sheriff I've ever seen work. He'll answer calls. He'll go here. He'll go there. He'll go everywhere. He's constantly on the phone. And that's good to an extent. But what's your chief deputy for? What's your captain for? What are they getting that extra money for?
Right. As things progress, kind of escalated up the pole.
Escalated up the pole. And a lot of people not on the same page with a lot of things. So rank in a small department, as it is right now, doesn't mean much. It's and it should. It should. I'd like for it too. And that's part of the structure part of it.
Stamp or something.
Yeah. Is, go to your lieutenant if you got an issue. Lieutenant can tell the chief deputy, so on and so forth. And that's how I've seen it in the past. And I've had to use chain of command when I was in McDowell County. I'd go to lieutenant, then the captain, and then chief deputy, and then the sheriff. So that's how it's structured here. Is, for the most part, being a lieutenant, being a captain, is just, you've got different responsibilities, a little more responsibilities as far as, keeping up with equipment and things like that, getting serial numbers off equipment. But as far as a authoritarian standpoint,
not a whole lot of difference.
Not a whole lot of difference. And it should be, as with structure.
Right.
It should be.
I appreciate your take and breaking it down. Let's shift gears for a moment. When you're off duty, what does a day in your life look like?
When I'm off duty, I'm a big time family man, and my boys have been my life. Anybody that knows me knows that I love my boys with everything in me. And that goes back to not really having a father growing up. And beyond anything that I've ever set forth in my life to be great at has been being a father. There's nobody in this world can't say that Shane Vance has not been a great father. And both my kids would tell you that. And now that we have our nephew now, he's 16, and I'm trying to be a father figure to him.
I commend you for that.
Yeah, well, it's a blessing.
Yeah.
It's a blessing, and God knew we needed it, because we had one in college, and Lachlan, my oldest, is 24, and he's got his own place. And I was sitting there in the empty house looking around, like, what's my purpose? And we ended up with my nephew, and I hope it continues. But I referee basketball and football. I've always liked being involved in youth sports, and with coaching my own. I even coached before I even had my own playing. Like, I always loved being involved in sports and with the youth. And, so my day is like we were talking earlier. I could make it here at 5 o'clock as long as I don't have to referee in Yancey County.
Right.
So I'm on the go constantly. And my animals, I love my animals. And my wife works third shift at the hospital, and we're kind of on opposite. We don't get to see each other a whole lot, but we when we try to spend quality time with each other, and don't see my kids as much as I'd like to, but I try to stay busy. And when you're running for office, like today, I run all over the place, talking to people, delivering signs, sitting here talking to you. But outside of politics, I enjoy hunting and fishing. And I love fly fishing. I just love being outdoors in the woods. And my kids, like, I've probably been too good a dad to my kids, to be honest with you, because they're spoiled, and I've probably been put too much emphasis on my boys, but I don't think you can. If you was raised like I was raised, but my grandparents were great, I wouldn't change my life for nothing. I don't want a pity story or anything like that, because I had a good childhood.
Right.
But it shaped who I am today, and it definitely shaped the father that I am. And but it's just right now it's politics, work, refereeing, juggling life. You got things come up in life that you have to take care of. So I mean, I'm just a human being trying to do the best I can. But
you also talked about incorporating a DSS worker into the sheriff's office. Based on what you've seen in other departments, what benefits did you observe that you believe would help the community you are attempting to serve?
Yeah, DSS and the sheriff's office, they work close together, and we've got the best interests of the kids at heart, or whatever situation it may be. They've got a great director with Wendy up there, and I talked to her before I even said anything, and not that she's for me or against me or taking sides. I called her and I said, hey, do you mind if I bring up this about DSS and law enforcement kind of having a liaison?
Right.
And she said, no, I don't mind a bit for you to do that. And I said, okay. So I can talk about this subject because she gave me permission to do so. I don't like to go over people's heads and talk about things without talking to them first. But her best interest is Mitchell County and the kids. And we work very close with DSS, and our goals are the same. Like, we want what's best for the children and the families. That being said, down in McDowell County, we had a DSS worker right across the hall from the narcotics division within the detective's office, because most of your child crimes will go through the detective's office. And it was so handy to be able to walk across the hall and talk to her and say, hey, look, this is what we got. What do you think about it? And she would call her supervisor, and she'd say, okay, this is what we need to do. And we'd go out with them and do what we need to do. I think it's a good idea for quicker responses, communication, being on the same page with each other, because a lot of times law enforcement officers don't understand why they didn't take children out of a certain home, or
she's got the background to know.
Oh yeah. This whoever,
or he or she,
whoever they would decide to put in the office, I think it would speed up the process and we could be all on the same page. So there wouldn't be any miscommunication, any bad mouthing, DSS or DSS bad mouthing. Not that that's going on.
Right.
I'm just saying it would deter that.
They would also be a more united front there.
Absolutely. Yeah. Because, we're in it for the right reasons. We're all in it for the same reasons. And I think it would be I've seen it in McDowell. It worked awesome. That was a very good tool. Being able to just go verbally instead of talking to somebody on the phone. And then you got your paperwork that you can share with them right there. You don't have to run up the mountain and, go through the entrance and hopefully one of them's there. Hopefully, so a lot of times they're out in the field doing their work.
Right.
And so this liaison being there, man, that's a no-brainer to me.
Sounds like a life changer.
Yeah, it's a no-brainer. You just walk across, you talk to them, build your file, you go show them your file, share your file. You're all on the same page with communication. It's, again, getting caught up with the time. As you ask these questions, it's popping in my head. Yeah, that's another getting caught up with the times thing. And having DSS in there, that would be tremendous. That's one of my big goals. I think it would help the communities and children and families and us as law enforcement officers and them as DSS workers. I think it'd be a great idea. I've seen it work.
Right. It sounds like a good difference maker. On a personal level, how do your values as a man shape your professional values as an officer and someone running for sheriff?
My values as a man and professional officer. I've not always been a perfect man. I don't claim to be. I've made mistakes in my lifetime.
Like we all do.
Yeah, I've made mistakes and did things I shouldn't have done, and I've owned those mistakes and moved past them. In a personal career as sheriff, or I think that the way that I was raised and being able to see both sides shaped me to be the person that I am, and shaped me to be the law enforcement officer that I am with my values. My values as a man run along with my values as a law enforcement officer, obviously.
Right.
My heart being where it's at and helping people. So that's, I'm not much different as a man as I am in uniform. Because I'm still that same man.
One and the same.
One and the same. So there's really no separation there. Now, sometimes you got to do things as a law enforcement officer, like when you serve eviction papers and things, that's hard to watch. And you got to put your feelings aside and do your job.
Right.
Because it's hard to know that you're serving this paper and they're not going to have anywhere to live. But at the end of the day, you have to. That's your job. That you swore an oath to uphold the Constitution and tenants and renters' rights and all that stuff. You have to get in the middle of it. But you got to, if you're consistent and fair, and when you sign a contract, you got to pay your rent, and that's what you got to keep telling yourself. But it's hard to do. When you got values of empathy. I'm an empath.
Right.
I carry a lot of other people's burdens around, and it's weird. And I think that's because I'm being raised by two elderly people. I always worried about them, like constantly. Like, are they gonna wake up tomorrow? Where am I gonna go if something happens to them? What? And they embedded in my brain, I think, as a young kid, to always worry about them and not myself.
Right.
and that's carried into my adulthood. Is I always worry about everybody else except myself, and it's a hard thing to overcome, but I think I'm in the right spot for that, to be an empath. But at the same time, you got to put that empath aside and do your job.
Right, right.
And I've been able to do that for 24 years.
To
As I went
differentiate
home,
the two.
have I went home and dwelled on it and thought, man, where's that person going to sleep tonight? Or they got kids. What's going to happen? Yeah, that's just the human nature in me. And even people I've arrested, I've thought, they got kids. I hate it for the kids. They're probably wondering why dad's in jail. And that's the empath in me. But at the same time, I'm telling myself, okay, this guy that I just put in jail don't care about other people's kids.
Right.
So I have to kind of put a tough front on in my mind.
You gotta shut that portion off for
I
a
gotta
moment.
shut that empath portion off and be like, this is my job. This is what I got to do. I did my job. Now it's up to the court system. And but yeah, that's I'm the same Shane in the uniform than what's sitting in front of you right now. Yeah, that's my values and how I am, and that's how I'll be as a sheriff. I still be empathetic. You can be empathetic to people and still do your job. You can, and I really wouldn't want somebody as sheriff that didn't have empathy for somebody. Honestly,
Do you think that somebody could hold that role and not be able to show empathy towards others?
I don't know how you could. I don't know how you could, honestly. But I would be speaking, on somebody else's behalf. But I honestly don't know how you could do this job and not have empathy. But that would be something that other people have to live with.
Right.
If they can live with it, then that's on them. I can't. I couldn't live with it.
Building on that, there's a distinction people often talk about. In your eyes, what's the difference between a nice guy and a good man?
All right, a nice guy can be perceived. Okay, you can shake somebody and say, "Oh, he seems like a nice guy."
Right.
A good man is somebody that truly knows you as a good man. Somebody that has known your upbringing, knows a lot about you. And they can say that's a good man. A nice guy, that's just an acquaintance. Oh, he seems like a nice guy. That's a good man. Two different things.
Somebody who really, truly cares and gets to know you.
Yep. That's a good man is somebody, somebody has trusted you at some point and you've never let them down. That's a good man. Somebody that you've met one time, you shook their hand. That's a nice guy. Hopefully that answers it.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It does.
Okay.
And how does that difference play out in law enforcement?
Um,
Because, you can walk around and kiss the babies and people be like, yeah, that's a nice guy,
man.
but
Right. And
what makes somebody walk away from that interaction? Be like, that's a good man right there.
I think by example, there's not many people in Mitchell County that doesn't know me. And I'm not tooting my horn when I say that, but I have, where I worked as SRO in the school system, a lot of the kids got to know me, and of course they run home and they say what Officer Vance said, what Officer Vance does. And I think the parents got to know me on that level, whether, it was good or bad. You had to make decisions as SRO that was hard because, you know, when you get juvenile justice involved, it's tough. But what I always had in my heart was when I did SRO and had to get juvenile justice involved is maybe we can stop this now before it's too bad, you know, before they go down a really wrong the path they're never going to be able to come off of. So I always approached it like that. So going to your question, you know, I think most people around here that know me as a good man by the way I treated their children. And people that don't know me might just think, oh, that's a nice guy.
Right.
How can you instill that's a good man into somebody that you just met? I don't know. It's tough. That's tough. Because I've assumed a lot of people are good men. I haven't been, you know? So I think how you treat people and feedback you get from the public of how, like, I've treated people in my career that has made it to other people and they've heard stories. As you know, small town, you hear stories. Reputation. I think they can say Shane Vance is a good man and not just a nice guy. I've been going off like crazy. That's another thing about politics.
Well, I watched my watch go off and I was like, it shouldn't be happening.
And I always want to answer my phone when people call because that's one promise I've made, you know, that I will answer any phone calls, any questions anybody has. So my phone's been going off like crazy, but it's all good.
I won't keep you much longer.
No, you're good. I'm glad to be here. I'm glad you got me here. Hopefully he takes you up on the same.
Yeah, I haven't reached out to him yet, but yeah, I'd glad to sit down with him. Now looking ahead, what would it mean to you to become sheriff?
Honest to goodness, I've run this through my mind. If I win, you will probably see me hit my knees crying.
Why would that be your emotions?
You could get me going right now. Because people told me I couldn't, you know? Sorry.
No, I mean,
I've got some people that don't believe in me right now. And I want to prove them wrong. And
I commend you for that.
I just want to make my hometown a safe place for our kids to grow up. And I don't care about the respect, about the title. I just want to get things done and accomplished for the betterment of everybody. And that includes the people who don't believe in me. And my children, my grandchildren are going to be growing up here. And I want to give Mitchell County something to be proud of. And most of all, I want to help people and give them every resource possible to get off these drugs. And I mean, every resource possible. I can't put it into words. I've always said if they could see inside my heart, that would be so much easier than me trying to explain it. And it's not for the power or authority. It's honest to God for this county.
Right.
And the officers. I want to prove that the naysayers are wrong. And I just want to be, you know, the little Shane Vance that was raised on Alta Pass by his grandparents, and don't have a big name, don't have a lot of money. To be remembered for making Mitchell County a safe place and a great place to live. And that's what I want to be remembered by. And that's why I want to be sheriff.
And that's powerful. It's raw.
Yeah, I mean, I'm me, man. You know,
That's all you can be.
that's all I can be, and that's all I know how to be.
Well, we have a tradition on the podcast where I like to leave all those who listen and follow along with a final thought for my guest.
Final thought is,
Well, when the people who know you best look back on your life, how do you hope they remember you?
that I put myself out there for scrutiny, for people turn their backs on me that I work with. But my family's sticking by me, and my friends and the people that are supporting me are sticking by me. And God knows my heart. And I want to be remembered as that empath, that guy that was willing to do whatever to help people, even if it meant people turning their backs on him. That's how I want to be remembered. And I know my boys are going to remember me as being a great father. And I've always been the greatest husband, but, you know, we're not all perfect. None of us are perfect, but I want to be remembered as a person with a big heart that made Mitchell County a safe place and changed law enforcement
Better.
for the better. And that would be an honor. And you know, if I don't get elected as sheriff, I feel like I'll still be remembered as a good man. And that's, at the end of the day, that's fine if they remember me as a good man. But I'd like to be remembered as a good man that was a sheriff.
Shane, thank you.
Thank you, bud.
It was great to sit down and talk with you and giving you that platform to tell your story.
Yeah. Sorry I got a little emotional, but yeah, I've envisioned that a lot in my mind about how I'm going to react. And if I lose, I'll probably react the same way, but it won't be from the lack of trying, you know.
Either way, tears of joy.
Either way, I'm blessed either way.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.